Let's face it, when I went into this course, I knew very little about the indigenous culture. I didn't know much about their identity other than residential schools, but aside from that, I was clueless as a rock. I went into this course with no idea as to what it would offer me. I wanted to learn something different other than Shakespeare. I wanted to learn something that would benefit me in life. I wanted to be able to get out of high school and be one of the few people in the country that knows a little bit something about the indigenous culture. I wanted to be educated about the first people who stepped foot in the country we live in today. You see, Romeo and Juliet's nice and all, but what did it teach me? Don't fall in love, plan things out, don't rush into things. You see, that's just not my cup of tea. And so, when I found out that there was another way to not have to take the typical grade 11 English course, I jumped on the horse and rode off into the sunset. Needless to say, I went into this course with an open mindset and a huge weight lifted off my shoulders to not have to read another Shakespeare novel again. Now, I know there's a lot of well-written novels or short plays out there about the lives of indigenous people, but this one's a real heart-whelming novel. Those Who Run in the Sky by Avak Johnston follows a boy named Paternic, a shaman in training, who tries to find his way out of the spirit world after a violent blizzard carries him there. As he tries to find his way back to those he loves, he's faced with these mythological creatures that ultimately help enhance his abilities as a shaman. But that's just not it. Pitu has been told that he has to find this long-lost shaman who's been stuck in the spirit world for years and years and years now, just so that he can teach him all about his shamanic abilities. Shamans are people who have access to and who influence the world of good and evil spirits. Remember when I said he has to find his way back home to those he loves? Well, those people include a girl named Saima. So how much is Pitu willing to do and how much is he willing to face to go back to the land he calls home? Now, I won't spoil the ending for you, but here's a heads up. Get ready for an emotional roller coaster ride because it's about to get real bumpy. The only context you really need before diving into this book is that the author, Avak Johnston, wrote this novel as a way for Indigenous children to see themselves as someone they can relate to other than the stories they've heard from their elders. I'm a Filipino, and as a young kid, I never really heard of a Filipino character who's the hero of a novel or TV show. And now, looking back on it, I'm thinking, oh wow, wouldn't it be cool to have a hero of the same ethnicity as you? Someone you can relate to and someone you can look up to. But I never thought much of it. But you know what I really did think about when I was a child? Mythological creatures. You know those monsters that your parents would make out so that you'd go to sleep? Or the ones where they tell you there's a monster living in your closet, which is probably why I still sleep with my closet doors closed. Look at me, a 16-year-old girl sleeping with her closet doors closed. That's normal, right? Oh, and there's this one that terrified me the most. One of a parent's biggest fear is losing their child while they're out and about in the streets. And so, as a way to keep me close by my parents' side, they'd say,
"If you move away from us, the monster will take you away forever."
good one, way to make your kids stick to you. But I won't lie, that was pretty effective. The main difference between Pitu and myself is the fact that he actually faced the creatures and I didn't. As Pitu finds himself in the spirit world, one of the first creatures he encounters with are Kalupluits. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, but when I first saw what they look like, my heart skipped a beat. Kalupluits are creatures that steal lone children, and out of shock of seeing a human in the spirit world, one of the Kalupluits jumped on him and her sharp claws dug into his shoulders, her feet, or what seemed like flippers, dug into his legs. The screeches coming from her throat were making him go deaf. Can you imagine what that would feel like? To have your shoulders pierced into, and here's the cherry on top, the Kalupluit screeches are making you go deaf. And so this puts Pitu in an unreal situation because he's face to face with a creature that adult figures have told him his whole life. Having a scary creature like that on your face and being able to get it off your body takes tremendous effort. Despite having his shoulders pierced, Pitu is able to get the creature off of his body, and because of this, we learn that he's strong and determined and he won't let pain get in the way of him finding his way back home. Pitu wants to fight the Kalupilowitz with dignity, the quality of being worthy of honor or respect. As a shaman, you have to be respectful towards nature and the people in your tribe. From Pitu's interactions with the Kalupilowitz, he learns to become this person who's capable of showing respect not only to himself, but to others, as well as he learns to not give up despite being in the face of fear and danger. After having his shoulders pierced by the Kalupilowitz, Pitu finds that he's being followed by wolves. Not just any wolves, this is the spirit world, remember? Yes, some of the wolves were normal sized, but the leader of the pack was not. The leader of the pack was the size of a polar bear. Just think about that for a second. A wolf, the size of a polar bear, out to get you. Well, that's not terrifying at all. Just like the Kalupilowitz, the wolf jumped. It landed on top of Pitu before he could throw his harpoon. He fell under tremendous weight with his arms pinned down. With a wolf the size of a polar bear and a small human being, what are the odds of Pitu getting out alive? Pitu, a determined young man, doesn't give up at all. He fought his way out of the wolf's control despite having a wounded shoulder. A true shaman never fails to give up just because a task is too difficult. In Some Day by Druid and Taylor, Janice left her biological family after the reunion because she found out the real reason why Children's Aid Society took her away from them. Pitu, on the other hand, faces his fears as he fights his way out of the wolf's grasp on him while he's wounded to find the lost shaman who can teach him how to control his powers to get back to the land of the living. Hasn't Pitu gone through so much in such a little time in the spirit world? Having to face mythological creatures right after one another takes a lot of strength away from a person, which is why, by this point, Pitu is extremely exhausted, like all the life out of him has been drained. So, he makes a little shelter in the ground where he can rest for however long it takes, and the next thing he notices is that he's staring into dark brown eyes of a giant named Nukpuk. The giant had both male and female traits, with its greasy hair hanging on the side of its face. Pitu's nose and the giant's nose were less than an arm's length away. Picture yourself in Pitu's situation. Terrifying, huh? And very unreal. The next thing Pitu realizes is that the giant is keeping him to hunt for little things. So think of how it would feel to be taken away by a giant and placed in his camp to do things for the giant. I mean, look on the bright side. The giant's not hurting him. Pitu then realizes that there's nothing to do at the giant's camp. So Pitu finds himself surrounded by a herd of caribous. It was the only thing at the giant's camp that felt normal to him. The next thing he felt is that all the anger in him has been taken away just by petting the caribou's thick furred bodies. Because of this, he learns to control his emotions by surrounding himself with familiar animals that he knows won't hurt him. Having read this novel twice, I've learned so much in just 207 pages than I have my whole life. At first, I didn't know much about the identity of Indigenous people as a community, but now I do. This novel has taught me so much about how Indigenous people live that it felt like I was there, a part of their community. Johnston's use of descriptive and emotional words throughout the text makes you see how Indigenous people live on a daily basis and the challenges they face. Those who are in the sky gives you an insight on the lives of Indigenous people that no other novel can do. So, why all this? What about mythological creatures? You see, these creatures that our parents have told us ever since we were young helps us become the best version of ourselves by challenging our abilities and improving on them. By having these made up creatures in the back of our minds guides us to who we truly are to go in the right path and succeed in life. Having a mentality that there are creatures out there who are capable of taking so much away from you in such little time makes us push ourselves so they don't get the best of us. And so, from now on, go forth and live your lives and be the best version of yourself there is. Thank you.